Hey y'all. So I thought it might be fun to kind of chat about the whole author tell your story process because I've had quite a few people ask. And really, when I got the call to tell my story, I thought it had been potential spam that slipped through Verizon. Just kind of like Moses, I thought, are you sure you called the right gal? It was never on my radar. I never thought it would be a part of who I am or my story. But there I was, I don't know how many years now, probably like 12, 15 years ago, when the Lord first called me to write my story. And honestly, at that time, I believed it was going to just be for me. So I thought, okay, this works out great because I'm willing to do that. If nobody else has to hear it, nobody else has to see it, then we're all good. Because to that point, honestly, I had not told any one person all of it. My brothers had lived part of his story with me. My ex-husband had lived part of my story with me. No one knew everything except the Lord. But he knew too how that all was going to get worked together. So initially it was just, this is just for us. This is our story. I call it my story, his story, our story. And so this just needed to get down on paper. And it's kind of funny because later on I had recommended to me by my editor to read this book called The Memoir Project. And it was awesome because I'm a logic and kind of a science geek. And she has an actual algorithm in that book for writing a memoir. And one of the processes was to get what she called a vomit draft down. Well, without even knowing it, back when the Lord called me, that's exactly what I did. I just started writing. I wasn't an author. I had no idea about style or how I was going to lay it out, how it was going to flow, any of that. It just came out of me in the format that you all ended up getting to read in Butterfly Stitches and that flows into Out Loud, both of my books. So it's kind of interesting. The Lord gave everything to me. He gave me the title, the cover, the mission, the story, that it's broken up in timelines, that it's broken up in emotional, spiritual, mental, and physical, all of that stuff. It just kind of came out of me that way. Then I went through, a while of dragging my feet. Not really, I call it dragging my feet, but it's outright disobedience. I had the opportunity, again, a divine appointment, to join Compel Pro Writing Group by Lisa TerKeurst, mostly writing. There are some platform building, and I'm a co-leader of the podcasting group to, get in there and kind of see some of the other aspects of writing your story. He was informing me that now it wasn't going to just be about me, that it was going to work together for good for others. So I needed to figure out what I was doing. So I get in there and had some interesting, reading. They have a lot of resources. I belonged to some groups where I was getting to hear other people launch books and, figure out their writing style and what they were doing and wrote devotions and Bible studies. And mine was going to be nonfiction. It was going to be a memoir. It was, whatever that all spelled out to. So an opportunity came up for you to submit a book proposal to some publishers. And I thought, okay, I'm supposed to do this. Well, in the middle of that process, I was like, I don't know what the heck I'm doing. And the Lord very clearly, and I know those of you who follow me know I say this, I don't know if you were in the room that you would hear his voice, but I do audibly hear from him. I hear from him regularly. We have conversation. I have my prayer time. I'm in his word. But there are times when it's audible. It's like there's no denying this is what's happening. And so he very audibly said to me that, no, you don't know what you're doing. But, you need to walk this process so that you understand. Little did I know that ultimately, as I was going to move forward, it was going to end up in self-publishing. But This all taught me so many things for that process, and if I ever wanted to go the traditional route. So writing out the book proposal helped me get stuff together, understand, my elevator pitch. I needed to be able to say what Butterfly Stitches, the Metamorphosis of Healing, was about in a few sentences if I ever was in an elevator, as they say, with a publisher or with an agent. So going through that process was awesome. Then I went through it again that fall. It was a spring and fall situation. I just felt the leading again from the Holy Spirit that I needed to find somebody to help me along. I didn't know that it would be called a writing coach. I just wasn't sure. I thought, okay, maybe I can find somebody within Compel. And I reached out to a couple people, didn't hear back from some. Others, I just, for whatever reason, didn't feel like they were a fit. I can't even tell you how I ended up on the phone with the young man who booked Bob Goff and his partner, Kimberly Stewart, at that time. But we ended up in a conversation. It came off of Instagram, I'm pretty sure. We were talking about bookkeeping, actually, at one point, which is my day job. And basically, it was a matter of minutes and we're off to the races. I mean, he told me all these different levels of how I could work with them. And I was like, okay, can't afford that one. Can't afford that one. And we worked our way down to the one I could afford. Yay. And actually, I ended up purchasing that level twice. And it was the greatest thing that I could have ever done. They were awesome. Bob is like up here. He and I are both Enneagram 7s. I call him a Tigger, and I feel like I'm kind of that way with people sometimes too. Probably to my detriment. It's probably made people run screaming from him. But we're, kind of all over the place. But he had a great overarching view of how I needed to get where the Lord was asking me to go. And Kimberly is the wordsmith. And we sat down and I had multiple 1-hour Zoom calls with her throughout the periods of time that were the coaching. And then Bob's were half-hour phone calls, and it was awesome. I didn't even know that he did that. So this was clearly all divine appointment, one after the other. Kimberly is phenomenal. I highly recommend finding a coach. And if you can, get in there and you want to go with Bob and Kimberly, you couldn't do better, in my opinion. I consider her a friend now. And she didn't hold back. She gave me the truth. She was honest and transparent. I thought our first meeting, she was going to tell me after I had sent her over some words that, burn this and start over, or are you sure you heard God right? But she didn't. And she said she would never do that. And she said, no, nobody knows what the heck they're doing when they start out. So this was awesome. I really actually had a foundation that wasn't impossible, that had been made my story, and we were going to be okay. She didn't have anything to say about me not telling my story, which is what I've always heard. In all the areas I was trying to support my daughter through her writing and through the teachers she had that were involved when she was in writing, they said over and over, don't ever let somebody tell you to change your story, your content. It's your story. How you're saying it, maybe the flow, the dynamics, definitely grammar and punctuation and all that good stuff. But it was incredible because Kimberly worked with me in such a way. She just kind of got me out of the gate. It didn't hurt that we have a similar sense of humor, for better or worse. But it was awesome. And I did choose to make a book proposal for the book and reach out to a bunch of agents. I found this really cool database that had like tens of thousands of agents, and you can go in and put your genre. You can go in and kind of put some other filters, like I'm a Christian. It's not necessarily a Christian memoir, but it's faith-based because I am. So clearly finding an agent who might be a little, press into that, be looking for that as the material they're looking for. Because a lot of times there are people who are secular, and no, that's their vibe, And so if they didn't want to necessarily look for a memoir that had to do with, my life and my healing, coming through it with the Holy Spirit, then, that would be a waste of everybody's time. So that was great. Did some of those. But then Bob and Kimberly both helped me press into the idea that changing from wanting to head for traditional and going to self-publishing is not a step down. It's not like giving up. Because in traditional publishing, they would not have let me keep my cover. They would not have probably let me keep my title. There would have been a lot of changes and a lot of things they would have wanted to do. And then you only get a certain amount of, your royalties. That's great. They give you a little chunk of money at the beginning, but you get a little bit of royalties. Now, mind you, you don't get a tremendous amount of royalties self-publishing. In fact, if you're into writing a book, you think, for making money, then I'd really start praying about something different for that. Unless you're going to go on a speaking tour or create some online courses. I believed I was called to tell my story so that I could comfort others with the comfort I've received. And that is a healing journey that I have been brought on, that I don't believe will be completed this side of heaven, but I know it's been started this side of heaven. He's now called me to the second part of my book. The first book, Butterfly Stitches, The Metamorphosis of Healing. The second book coming out in September, Out Loud, The Sound of Healing. And then retreats where I can help others start taking those initial steps. It's called Inside the Chrysalis. The first one's in November here in Scottsdale. This all started from the original call to just tell my story. Every bit of it has been for me, yes. But every bit of it now is my mission, his purpose, his plan for me. And this has been an absolute blast. I would love to create a few more episodes where I can talk to you about some of the deep dive things I discovered along the way. If you feel like you're being led to tell your story, and I can let you know some of the ins and outs that I learned along the way. I am not a book coach. I'm not a writing coach, but I have walked this journey. So I feel like in a lot of places that qualifies you. You are now a little bit of a subject matter expert because you've gotten qualified that way. I heard a doctor that I followed the other day on social media say that even though he had doctor in front of his name, he was more qualified because he had actually walked the conditions he was talking about helping people heal from. So I couldn't agree more. So this is kind of how I got the call and where it's led. And I would love to go into this a little bit more, let you know what's going on. Please, by all means, if you want to send a few comments my way, make sure that I cover something in the upcoming episodes, by all means, please do. But this has been, I refer to it as riding a roller coaster in a tornado, because it's thrilling, it's exhilarating, it's terrifying, but every bit of it has been worth it. So I hope you enjoy what you've heard here, and maybe piqued your interest to watch the upcoming episodes. Thank you for coming to class today, and class dismissed.